Hey everybody, welcome to Pepe's channel. We're going to talk today a little bit about a food forest and the one that I'm designing in the backyard of my property when I come back. But before I get started, I want to ask you guys a favor. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and hit that little bell down there and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. Alright, so I think the best way to explain and describe what a food forest is to take a little walk through here. And as we do that, we'll take different shots from different angles. We'll focus on a couple of the specific plants that are out there. You'll notice some are in containers and some are already planted in the ground. Now right here is a sugar apple. This one is botanically named Annona squamosa. That's your sugar apple. That's a delicious fruit, fairly easy to grow in the subtropics, and this is going to go in the ground. Haven't decided exactly where it's going to go. This is a Brewster Lychee, and that's a very good lychee tree to have because it's very consistent in its production. Back here, I'm going to walk in and I'm going to show you some cacao plants that I'm growing, and I also have a papaya, and I also have a grapevine, a Muscadine Grape, I also have a Guava, and I also have a citrus. So let's go over there and take a look. Off to my left here I have the Red Lady Papaya tree, which is a dwarf papaya, and one thing that's really important is you want to give them full sun, also regular fertilizer or compost every 2 weeks. Guaranteed, because they don't like to be stressed. They like to be happy. Keep them happy, okay? Lots of water, well-drained soil. Actually plant them a little higher if you know the area floods, because anything with flooding will just kill this in just a couple of days. It'll get root rot and die. So this is your Red Lady dwarf papaya. It is a hermaphrodite with male and female flowers, so it is self-pollinating, and it will do a terrific job of providing you with some nice, large, delicious papayas hanging low on the tree. Alright, so here we are beginning to get into the food forest, and you're going to notice that a lot of the plants are very, very close together. Okay? The idea of the food forest actually is keep things maintained at heights that provide different levels of light for the requirements of each plant. Now, the papaya is getting plenty of sun over here, pointing in this direction, where my hand is pointing is west, and right behind me is east, so I have north and I have south. Above me, I have some very tall coconut palms that tend to provide a little bit of shade here at different parts of the day, okay? And then the cacaos are traditionally grown in a much deeper, or at least a filtered, shady kind of an environment, and that's really what they prefer. But cacao is also grown in full sun. When you grow it in full sun, they're gonna grow a little faster and they're gonna produce a little quicker, but one thing is you're gonna need to use a lot more water and a lot more fertilizer. So the reason I put them over here is because I wanted to determine exactly how well they will do in this full sun condition. Now, on the other side of the property, on the southern side of the property, I have two cacao plants that are growing in a much more filtered, shadier area, and we'll show you those later in the video. In front of me, in a container, is a grumi chama. Grumi chama is a delicious, wonderful fruit, very similar to a cherry. It's not a cherry, but it's very similar to a cherry. It's really nice. We'll be planting this in the ground here in the food forest real soon. All right, about 5 feet away is my Carambola tree. That thing's been there for about 5 years, and that Carambola tree is called a Sri Kangbangan. Sri Kangbangan. That is a grafted variety because it has a name, and it produces a ton of fruit. I get 3 harvests per year. I usually end up making some juice and giving away the rest of the fruit to friends and family. Right underneath it, there's an herb garden here, which has a bunch of medicinal plants. I have anamu, and I also have another plant here called tilo. And it's a very nice little plant, very ornamental. It does real well because it's shaded by the Carambola tree. Another thing, that Carambola tree also is going to provide some shade to the cacao plants that are on my right side, okay? All right, so here on my left is my Ruby Supreme Guava, which if you watch the previous video about how to save your citrus tree, you'll see how small it was. It's been a couple of months, and it's pretty much doubled in size and in width. And it's planted here in the edible food forest, and this is a terrific, wonderful type of guava. It's a pink, nice, large guava. Right here is one of the more challenging plants for us to grow in Florida, and now also in Texas, California, Louisiana, and other states that grow citrus. For me, I've been fortunate that the plant is doing terrific, very, very healthy. And I'll take a couple of snapshots here of the leaves so you can see how beautiful and healthy the leaves are, and that there is very little, if any, attack on the new growth from the citrus leaf miner. And the reason for that is, another video I have is about protecting your citrus trees from the leaf miner, and these little traps that I have right here are part of the solution to keep the leaves looking as good as the ones that are on this tree. So with citrus, it's really important to keep the immune system strong, and what's recommended is a citrus nutritional spray that contains minor nutrients. Okay. So we're going to move to the back. I'm going to show you my muscadine grape, I'm going to show you another papaya plant, and then I'm going to show you some of the other plants that I have in the back. Alright, so right here on my left I have my muscadine grape. This guy has a pretty good story. Basically, I was growing this guy in a container for about 4 years, and every year would produce a nice quantity of grapes. Maybe like I get about a pound of grapes, if that, maybe 3/4 of a pound, and they were really, really good grapes, very delicious. And then what happened was that one year I just got frustrated because I kept thinking about doing this food forest and I never got around to it. And it was last year that I took it and I just dug it out of the pot, took it and threw it in the corner. I literally just took this thing, and it was in the fall, so it was already going dormant. So that's part of the reason why it's still here. I took that muscadine grape, I threw it against this fence line over here, and I pruned it back hard. Now, that wasn't the smartest thing to do, and I'll tell you why. Because what you want is, you want a grape to be in one spot, and you want to have 1 or 2 main leaders. You want 2 long branches, and you never cut those. You leave those alone. Those are the ones where all your grapes are going to be hanging from. What you do is, after you harvest all of your grapes, you go ahead and you trim that up, and you get all the little, branches that it's hanging from, all the stems. You clean that all up nice. You let it go dormant, and you wait again for the spring for it to continue to grow, set some flowers, and set some fruit. So this year, and I'll come in on a close-up, I'll give you a better idea of how I am working on growing this muscadine grape. But this year is over. I have to wait an entire year before I'm going to see this thing loaded with grapes. On my left, I have my Israeli fig called Avi, and it is an absolute delight. It's easy to grow. It produces these nice, large, greenish yellow figs that are to die for. It is so good. The amazing thing about Avi is it grows so well here in our humid, hot South Florida, and probably will do well in similar climates. So if you're in Louisiana, for example, I'm assuming you guys are probably like we are here in Florida, pretty hot and humid. Avi is a fig that would probably do really well down there. Let me turn this so you can see a little bit better. And then I promised you about the muscadine, so I'll come back and I'll explain a little more about the muscadine vine. And if you'll notice, I've created a wire that's running along the fence. Basically comes up. All right, so you'll notice that as it's growing across the wire, these tendrils will eventually grab on, but sometimes it doesn't hurt to very gently help our little muscadine grape along the wire. But I ran this wire all the way down about, I guess it's about 11 feet down to the other edge of the fence. And then I brought the wire down and brought it back halfway this way. So the idea is for this muscadine to continue growing, I'm also going to measure how much it grew between now and the fall. And then we're going to leave it alone. And next year, after it comes out of dormancy, we're going to see what kind of production I get from my muscadine grape. Now over here on my left, I have my Chinotto Citrus, which also is doing terrific, growing very well, and already has some beautiful little fruit about the size of a ping pong. And they're staying really, really nice and green, but they should start to ripen up real soon, and they'll be like these nice little orange colored, tiny ping pong ball sized citrus that have a very interesting, unique flavor. Look it up, Chinotto Citrus. This guy is a very unique moringa. This is a Moringa stenopetala. I grew these from seed. I have 2 of them on the property here. Now, Moringa Oleifera is a better choice. I have some on the property, but I had to chop them down because they were just getting too old, and I've replanted a bunch of new ones, okay? Moringa Oleifera, much faster growing, and is an excellent plant for the food forest because you can chop and drop the leaves to fertilize the ground. I mean, with all the nutrition that's inside these leaves, chopping it up, composting it, or just chopping it up fresh and throwing it on the ground and letting it break down is an easy way of saving money on fertilizer. Another thing you can do is you can take the leaves, maybe like 3 nice branches, peel off, and I'm not talking little branches like this, I'm talking about branches like this big, okay? Strip off the leaves and then turn around, put it in a blender, say, make a nice mush, you know, with some water, maybe like, I don't know, maybe a cup of water to a big handful, about this big, of leaves. Put it in the blender, mush it up, and then add about 5 parts more water in a pump-up sprayer or one of those handheld sprayers, and go out and foliar feed the entire yard. It's amazing, it really is. The katuk is a very easy to grow plant for the tropics and the subtropics. This started out as a tiny little plant. I mean, the thing was like this big, it was like 6 inches. It's been in here for about 4 months. It's grown quite nicely. It's in a semi-bright, semi-shady location. And has a kind of a peanutty flavor. It's very nutritious and it's easy to grow. Now here's another great plant that you can grow, and believe it or not, you can grow this indoors as a house plant, or you can grow it in a place like Florida. As long as you're in the southern part of Florida, it's a lot easier to grow. It's in a great location, it's protected by a little bit of shade overhead, and it's doing terrific. It's actually loaded with green cherries right now, and in about a couple more months will start to turn red, and a few months later we'll be able to harvest this and make our own coffee. Now if you're on Facebook, check me out, Jason Pepe. Look for the guy that says grow your own food at the top of the banner, because there's a lot of Jason Pepes out there. But anyway, if you go to Facebook and you want to check me out, also go to Extreme Coffee Growers. It's a group on Facebook, so if you're interested in growing coffee outside of the coffee belt, check out Extreme Coffee Growers. We have a small group of people that are enthusiastic from all over the United States, Australia, and other parts that are very interested in growing coffee outside of the traditional area where you would grow it. On my left, I have a Moringa stenopetala, much larger canopy, and it's also about 3 years old and still no flowering. To my right, I have one that you've seen appear on a couple of my videos. This is the Yehuda Loquat tree, and it's grown quite a bit. You might want to refer to the video. I'll post a link up here about growing Yehuda Loquat, and you can see how much it's grown. Now, I'm going to be doing an air layer on this tree. An air layer is a method of propagating where I can make another tree, or maybe 2 trees, from this tree. And every time I do that, I end up making the tree a little bit smaller. Now, in the video that I have here on Loquat, you'll see that this produced a nice handful of fruit that I enjoyed, and I didn't share anybody with anybody. It was all mine. It's delicious. Look up that video or take a look above and I'll put the link there. This is called Yehuda Loquat. All right, right here I have my Soursop tree, which I showed you guys how I planted it in one of my videos, and I'll put a link to that video above me. This is a great tree. It's a medicinal tree. It's delicious fruit. It's wonderful. Has one problem, and that is it doesn't like the cold. You open the refrigerator in front of this thing and it's not happy. It drops all of its leaves, okay? So very cold sensitive, but nevertheless something that you can grow as long as you're aware of the temperatures and what you need to do. Once they're in the ground, you got to take some real precautions and be ready with, you know, heaters and blankets and you name it. Anyway, watch that video and it'll give you more information about Soursop. My Soursop's been in there for about 3-4 months now, and it's doing great. By the way, there is a big storm coming, so if all of a sudden lightning strikes and I'm done, well, you know what? The end of Pepe's plants, I guess, because it's thundering like mad and the clouds are coming in. Okay, right over here, I got myself some sweet potato. That's right, going on month number 2. Sweet potato vines doing great. I've already dug up and looked, and they're doing really well, and it's growing in a container. Eventually I'll create a bed, and I'll go ahead and plant my sweet potatoes elevated so that I don't have problems with water sitting there and destroying my crop. But this is going to be a wonderful sweet potato crop. I already peeked inside there and saw some coming out, and it looked great. Sweet potatoes, you can do that as well. Let's keep going. Okay, so here I am. It's windy. A tornado is coming, and I'm watching you guys I'm watching you guys. Here I am in the backyard, a tornado is coming, it's lightning and thundering, and I'm out here on YouTube doing a video. Isn't that great? You know, I love this stuff, and I love doing these videos, so I hope you guys subscribe to my channel. And by the way, why don't you let me know what you're up to, okay? What are you growing in your backyard? Are you growing sweet potatoes? Are you growing peach trees? Check out this peach tree. Florida Grand, that's right. Florida Grand peach. Wonderful, easy to grow in a nice pot. This thing was about 3 feet tall. It's been about 6 months now, and it's doing terrific. Behind me is that big old Carambola tree that I love so much that has the best fruit ever. And then right below me here, I have my little beak peppers. These guys are amazing, the little beak peppers. Now this over here is yacon, Y-A-C-O-N. Also, I believe it's called a Peruvian apple. It's basically a root that grows in the ground. You chop it up, and it has a sweet flavor to it, similar to a crisp apple, okay? Not something you're gonna be able to grow everywhere, but you can certainly try and grow it in a container. It's unusual, it's different. Oh, I promised you guys I was gonna show you the cacaos that are in the more shady area. Let's go over there. Now this part of the yard, right next to this wall, has got a lot of tall Areca palms, and it provides a very broken filtered light, and that's where I have these 2 cacao plants planted very close together. Now you'll notice there was 2 cacao plants on the other side, and I have 2 cacao plants here. The reason for that is you want cross-pollination. Another thing you want to have, it's really important with cacao. In your food forest, make sure you have lots and lots and lots of organic material. All the leaves that fall, leave them alone. Let that leaf litter pile up. Let the biology in the soil develop, because the only way you're going to get that plant pollinated, for the most part, is for that tiny little flower to be pollinated by a microscopic little midge. A little midge, which is a tiny little fly, okay? Sort of like the no-see-ums. If you've ever been on the west coast of Florida, or maybe somewhere else in the country, where you're on the beach and all of a sudden, boom, something bites you and you have no idea what bit you, that was a no-see-um. We call them no-see-ums. So we need some no-see-ums in order to pollinate, and you gotta have lots and lots of leaf litter. Hey guys, I'm gonna wrap this up. The tornado is coming. I gotta get out of here, gotta go back inside. I already feel a little bit of rain falling on my head. In the next video, we'll cover some more plants. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you start thinking about creating a food forest in your backyard. Hey, get out there and plant the tree, will you?